Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Beautiful You. I'm your host, Avantika. Today, we have a wonderful guest with us. Andrew is a mental health advocate based in the United States. Graduated from the University of Miami and Rutgers University. He's currently a certified high school counselor and an educator. He was diagnosed with bipolar 1 with psychosis, PTSD, and OCD. He's currently living sober for roughly 800 days, and he's now a proud husband and a dad of two. Welcome, Andrew, to the podcast. I'm so stoked to have you here. How are you doing?
Appreciate you having me today.
How are you doing?
I'm doing all right. Like we spoke about earlier, for me personally, summertime's more danger zone for me, from probably, I would say June through September.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of a quote unquote like my worst months. But then the time change and the weather changing a little bit. Just P's and Q's all the time.
Yeah. So, even in one of your videos, you had mentioned something about P's and Q's. How do you maintain? What exactly is that? How do you, keep yourself going in those moments?
I think the biggest thing for me is constantly educating myself. Um, I don't believe in being stagnant. Everything's okay. I just wasn't raised that way. So regarding whether it's goals in life or just wanting to be better, that goes with my recovery as well. So I'm never comfortable. I don't know if that's the right word. I'm just always looking to grow and stay motivated in that sense. Like I just said, more than just life. My recovery as well. So.
Oh, okay, fair enough. To start off with, your first Instagram post itself talks about how you were diagnosed with bipolar 1 and how you wanted to talk about it from a male perspective. Could you elaborate on, so for the listeners who don't understand what bipolar 1 is, could you tell us a bit about that and also, from a male perspective, like what it is like being a man with diagnosed with bipolar?
Yeah, so I think that might have been one of my first posts, but you went way back.
Yeah.
Um, I just felt like, well, first of all, to me, whether layman terms or simple definition, bipolar one to me is more, there's a lot of different versions, but bipolar one, I would say, is more the mania side. It's you could explain it so many different ways, but I would say one being, mania is more prevalent, where hypomania and depression is more too, but it's just a lot. I'm more at risk for the mania side. But I think I wrote that regarding the male perspective. I just felt like when I started my account, I felt like I was seeing so many women accounts. I just felt like I didn't see a lot of males. So probably when I wrote that, just wanted to attract, I guess you could say males and stuff, and just give it a different outlook. Obviously I'm a male, so yeah, that was. Yeah, you dug deep on that one. So yeah, that was a while back. That was probably 2+ years ago. And actually, it's always funny to me. Well, not funny, but when I started that account, I was full blown hypomanic. Now it was weeks before my last hospitalization. So it was, you think back of what you did and how you started things up, and yeah, it was on the verge of something bigger. So.
Okay. I do want to get into hospitalization and your experience with it. But before that, I would like to dwell a little bit more about your journey. At what age were you diagnosed with bipolar?
I'm sorry, you broke out. Can you repeat that?
At what age did you were you diagnosed with bipolar?
I I just turned 29. Um, like, I mean, not even a week. I was diagnosed a week after my 29th birthday. Um, but yeah, I would say my onset, looking back at things, is probably 17 years old. Just certain things had happened, my junior, senior year in high school. And, I've talked about before, doctor had diagnosed me with Epstein-Barr, and that's like a more serious form of mono. And I mean, just having conversations with people, saying the worst I ever felt for 2 weeks and then the best I ever felt for a week. I remember saying that word for word to my older brother. But yeah, just 12 years later, and then finally everything comes full steam. And, that was, I just turned 36 last month. So that was, 7-ish years ago.
Okay. Do you think things might have been a little different if you were diagnosed earlier?
This is definitely a topic I've spoken about before.
Mhm.
I I genuinely believe that if I was diagnosed around that time, I don't think I would have, education wise, I don't think I would have achieved, my bachelor's, my master's. I just don't think that route would have happened for me. Um, so that's probably the biggest thing. Um, yeah, just looking back, like I just don't see it happening, and I don't know if it's knowing what I went through when I was 29 years old, just diagnosed 7 years ago. I just feel like just don't think it would have happened. I really don't, being 17, 18 diagnosed, and I just don't think it would have happened for me education wise is probably the biggest thing I could say.
In what way do you that's interesting actually, because I was diagnosed with bipolar when I was 17. And if anything, I'm glad, I kind of glad for the most part that I got the diagnosis early on, because regardless of the diagnosis, the onset has already begun, right? So
Mhm.
getting the answers as to, oh, this is what is happening, and then getting awareness, getting yourself educated on that, it helps me manage bipolar well. And it's interesting that you say that you wouldn't have, it would have affected your education had you been diagnosed earlier. And
Mhm.
how do you think like getting a diagnosis would have impacted your career or your education in that sense?
Yeah, I just at at 29 with my first hospitalization, I felt like I was open to learning, and to be aware of what's going on.
Mm,
And I just don't think, at knowing what I was at that age, I don't think it would have went well. Just, I was a heavy drinker already at that age. Just everything that I just that's just in my heart. I don't think I would have embraced it the way that I should have, the way that I did when I was 29. So for
okay.
me, it's a blessing in disguise for me.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like everyone is going at it at their own pace, and you get to the acceptance of your diagnosis at a particular age. So it makes complete
Yeah.
sense. You
Yeah.
were also diagnosed with OCD and PTSD alongside bipolar. So how do you manage all three of them? Could you tell us a bit about?
Yeah, it's sometimes, one's beating me up one day, or, I'll have days, just all of it all
Mhm.
at once, just some days are really, really hard, when it comes to, you know, PTSD, whether my three different hospitalizations or just childhood trauma, I experienced when I was a little boy.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and you throw, for me, I like to explain it that, being bipolar one is one thing, and then you throw in the flashbacks and all of that regarding PTSD and so many other things. But I would probably say I don't like comparing, but for me, if I have to compare the three, I would say right now in this moment, I struggle the most with OCD.
Mhm.
It's just I've been learning so much more, about it, and your thoughts, compulsions, and it's absolutely relentless. I feel like it doesn't, you know, it really annoys me when people talk, oh, so you're super neat, you're super like like absolutely clueless. That's just a little piece of it if that relates to you.
Mhm.
But yeah, just the combination of all three, it's a lot. It really is. And actually, I was my first hospitalization. I was diagnosed just bipolar one with psychotic tendencies, and then I want to say 3 years later, I
Mhm.
was diagnosed on top of that with PTSD and OCD. But I don't know, kind of knew the OCD piece already. But yeah, it's different when it's quote unquote official. Um, but yeah, it's definitely a lot when you throw all that together, just like anything else. Whether you have one diagnosis or three or four or five, it's not easy regardless. So
Of course, yes. Managing bipolar is a challenge of its own. So it's like you said, throw in more of it flashbacks and OCD in it. It makes it a little bit harder. What are some of your like priorities or essentials to manage all three together?
to manage all three,
Yeah.
you had mentioned before you hit the button to record routine. I always talk about RAG, routine awareness and gratitude. I could talk about that for a while, but probably my number one thing in my life is my routine.
Mm-hmm.
Just obviously every day is different, but there's certain things I do that it's routine. Like it's the way I wake up, get ready, walk out the door, like everything, and it ha- in a way for me, it's that feeds into my OCD as well. The I had learned, done some research. I could be wrong with the number. There's like 12-ish themes of OCD,
Mm-hmm.
and stuff you would never even think of. But I've always gravitated towards order. Having control of everything in order, and you could talk about organization and all this, but doing certain things to feel like you have control of your life. Um, but yeah, it's a routine, that kind of keeps me, holds it all together. But it's also a disadvantage in the same token because it's feeding into my OCD. But I try to use it as more positive for me because that's I don't do well with OCD. Then everything goes to crap. So
Sounds like a lot. Thank you for sharing that with us. So you mentioned awareness, gratitude, and routine. I love that. Thank you so
yeah.
much for sharing. You mentioned that you were at hospital. The first time you were hospitalized, it was because of bipolar with psychosis. So, how was your experience? Or like, how was the first time being hospitalized? And then you also mentioned 3 months, 3 years later, that happened. Was that the most recent one, or were there more hospitalizations that occurred?
Yeah. So I've had three total. Um, Got me thinking. The first one was September of 2016.
Mhm.
Um, Full blown manic episode. Um, that lasted. I was hypomanic for months, but full blown manic. I would say I don't know 4 or 5 days. But no, super dangerous. From you know I talked about before being at an airport during the anniversary of 9/11, full psychotic break. Thinking, hotel room, thinking I'm God. Legitimately thinking I'm God in that moment. Cops. It was a lot. There's a lot of flashbacks involved with that. My life could have been very different if I wasn't hospitalized at the time that I was. But yeah, going in there and you know I remember a lot. People have told me that they don't remember a lot. I remember a lot. Um, and just being inside the unit, and a lot of flashbacks and memories I have regarding that specific time and all of them. But just coming out and just having an answer. It was finally, I have an answer of why my whole life I've been a certain way, or the way that I've done things or operated. Um, and it was hell on earth for a few years, but from that hospitalization, I think it was 5 months later, I was hospitalized again, my second time, for suicidal ideations. Um, again, just a different experience. Being a zombie, just trying to survive. And I was like that for years, just not realizing why I was doing certain things. And you think about it later on, you reflect back, I was just trying to stay alive. Um, and not knowing, that's real depression, or, you're having suicide ideations, or, you know, in between, in between probably 3 or 4 years. I don't know. It's tough to pinpoint all those feelings, but from the second time to the third time,
Mm.
um, my last one was August of 2021. Um, yeah, that was again a full blown manic episode. That one, I'll always describe that one as the toughest one. I was super angry. The best way I could describe it is thinking I was doing everything right, and I still ended up in the hospital. Um, Very impactful. Just at that point, I had two kids. The first time I didn't have any. Um, the first two times I didn't have any. My son was just born in April, and I was hospitalized in August.
Mm.
And he's my second, and yeah, that one. That a lot of soul searching in that last one, and really coming to terms that even though I felt I was doing everything right, it just, I needed to change things. I needed to do it better, and sobriety got thrown into the mix, and always say that it's not the answer, but it's part of the puzzle, and gratitude, and just, yeah, I'm very I respect the power of all the diagnoses, and I know it could take me out, whenever it wants. So that's why, I'm never comfortable, like I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And, I know that even, someone like me, big, strong, whatever, however you, just me in general, that it's stronger. So I'm not going to go down without a fight, and I'm not going to let it be easy, to be hospitalized again, or even go down that route, or, yeah, I've always said number four is not happening, but reality is it could. So yeah, it's a lot between those three hospitalizations, and it's not somewhere where I would want to go back to, even to just to get better. I would definitely be fighting that all the way, but it's our reality.
Mm. It sounds a lot, yeah.
Yeah.
Having this full blown manic episodes. I really like what you talked about, how it's part of the puzzle and not the answer. That is so true when looking at the bigger picture. Because the hospitalizations or the experiences that we go through, we often just look at it for them. The recovery, the part where people say healing isn't linear is genuinely so true. Recovery part of it is an ongoing battle that you have to fight every single day. That you have to show up for yourself every single day, and the key to it lies in the routine and the daily habits that you inculcate. I'm genuinely, I hope you're in a better place now, and I do hope that the hospitalizations don't occur anymore, that you only have three, and that's it. It does sound a lot, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's I like the part. I'll take it with me from this episode where you talk about it's part of the puzzle and not the answer. So one of the other things that I wanted to ask you is you talk about being a high functional person. Like you seemingly are a high functional person despite all the diagnoses that you have. What does it mean to be a high functioning person, and what does it feel like, you know, feel like someone who's a high functioning, considering you're classified as such an individual?
Yeah, I think that's more. I know a lot of people could relate to this. I feel like those not in our community, they have this picture
Mm,
of what mental illness should look like and what it does look like. And you know, I've come across, I've spoken to so many people that you would never know. You legit are clueless,
mm,
and I feel like I'm one of those people, and I'm pretty honest. Working at my school, and I've spoken to staff, and I run a life skills mental health group for juniors and seniors, and I'm open about it.
mm,
Um, but you wouldn't know, and a lot of people, if I say it, they just look, surprised, they're shocked. Um, yeah, it's I know me saying that out loud, a lot of people could relate to that, and just for me, the struggle for me when it comes to that is that yes, I'm X, Y, and Z. I've accomplished this, blah blah blah, but that doesn't make it any easier. Um, you know, I just feel like there's a lot of stigma, behind all of it in general. What it should look like. Whether people are all the time in psychiatric units or homeless or and it's of course that's the true reality, but there people that are super high functioning and you would never know, and they struggle immensely. During my as of right now, most difficult years, you would have never known at all. You wouldn't have known anything. I
yeah.
knew the people, maybe even people super close to me, but nobody knew just like me. Nobody knew the way I knew. And yeah, there's a lot of stigma behind that. And yeah, I'm just people that are clueless have a picture in their head, and they're clueless. So yeah, that's a big one of those things that bothers me a lot. The ignorance.
How do you suppose we could uh, tackle those stigmas?
I mean, doing what we're doing right now.
Mm,
You know, speaking. I whether it's my page or having opportunities like this with you, just speaking my story, your story. Whomever. I also feel that there's a handful of us willing to do that, willing to speak, but then there's 10 times more that whether they're not there yet or they're just not able to. They don't. I have no problem speaking for someone that may relate to what I'm saying right now.
mm.
And if I'm willing to do that, why wouldn't I do that for someone else that needs to hear it? So yeah, we're doing it right now.
Of course, yes. Do you have any words of encouragement for someone who has recently been hospitalized or is thinking of being hospitalized?
I've heard how every hospitalization has different meaning or different way of you approaching it.
Mhm.
I think for me, what was really helpful was I wasn't fighting it in the beginning. I wasn't resistant the way I was at my last one. So typically say that it's the reverse. More resistant in the beginning, more open. For me, I was the other way around. And just to be open about it, just it's hard to come to terms with that something's wrong.
Mhm.
Um, but that's a tough one to tell someone that you need to look at it this way. That's tough for someone like me to tell me that. Um, yeah, just really educating yourself, just doing research and reaching out to people. And there's a wealth of knowledge out there. You, me, other people that do podcasts, and just doctors, therapists. There's a lot out there, and
Mhm.
I'm not saying to listen to everything. I don't believe in just listening to every single piece of knowledge that you come across, but at least you gotta educate yourself. You gotta come to terms with that. This is your life, and this isn't going away. And I think some in our community that's a tough concept. Um, it's this is forever. That's the truth. You're gonna be taking medication forever. You're the potential of being hospitalized again. That's a real reality.
Mhm.
And just respecting what you have, like I said before, and super powerful. And it's always wanting wanting to progress. And I feel like that's one of my strengths.
Mhm.
I'm just I want to be better. And I'm not gonna use I'm not gonna say that my diagnosis is holding me back. Yeah, it's a lot to it. It affects a lot, but that's I'm not gonna use as a I can't do this because of that. That's I don't feel like that should be 100% of the time thing. So
Absolutely.
it's you know
Do you have any words of encouragement who has been for someone who's been going through bipolar disorder?
I missed the first part.
Do you have any advice or words of encouragement for someone who has been going through bipolar disorder?
And just day by day. Um, I'll try to think back. You for me, I don't know if you can relate to this, but like when I think back of like my darkest, and eventually you finally get out of that, and you think to yourself, like, how the hell did I do that? Like, how did I crawl out of that? And I still really don't have an answer for all those years, feeling the way that I did. And I, but I was really big with, the day is over, tomorrow's another day, even if I knew that was going to be a bad day, and I guess that's something I could say is, you know, especially in those dark times, finding the little things to look forward to. It could be super small, just getting off from work, going home, taking a shower, or the football game's on in a few days and your team is playing. Just some things, it could be so little. Always having something to look forward to, because if you don't, that's super super dangerous. um so that's something I relied on. Again, don't know how I did it that long, but I did. And probably the other thing is something I've been doing a lot. um if I'm feeling a certain type of way, just I refer to it as just sitting in it.
Mhm.
Just sit in your mood, just sit in it. Don't try your absolute best not to overreact. Of course you have to react a certain way on some things, but just not to get so flustered, and
Right, of course.
wishing for the best, in the sense that, like for me recently, last week was a bad week for me. I just woke up, whether it was Sunday or Monday, feeling a certain type of way, and I had a really bad week.
Mhm.
But you just follow the course and coping skills, and hopefully your work. And sometimes you have zero control, so just writing it out. So that's super easier said than done. But yeah, those would be my biggest things.
Okay, thank you for sharing. We are coming towards an end of the episode, but before that, is there anything I might have missed out on that you wanted to talk about, anything to elaborate?
No, we spoke about a lot. Can't think of anything right now. Yeah, it's just, this is forever, and I guess I was just saying this to my wife. We were having a conversation, and what I said is that I've there's so many, let's say low, medium, high. The low end being depression and the high end being mania. I've worked so hard just to try to find the middle.
Mm.
Um, and call it stability, whatever the case may be, and that's a forever thing. Some days I'll be more towards the middle, and other days I'll be on the opposite sides, the low end or the high end. But just trying to have more of those days in the middle, and that's why I talk about just educating yourself and learning your triggers, your routine, and looking forward to things. And yeah, this is ongoing. This isn't just, you feel good one day and it's going to last forever, because the truth is you're going to feel like crap, whether it's the next day, the next hour, next week. You just gotta be ready for all of it. You know, Even for me, super unpredictable,
Mhm.
at times. But your loved ones, hopefully, it's a support team on your side, your team. But you have to be ready for all that yourself in any moment. So it's not easy at all. So I empathize with people going through a rough time right now, because you, me, we definitely know what that feels like. And the truth is, that could be us next week. So it's a lot. So
It is a lot, and with bipolar, you can just never know because sometimes the triggers are so unknown to you. You would never think that this is a trigger, but it turns out to be a trigger, and then you just go through some mood swings, and it's just yeah, it's lifelong, like you said, and management is the key for it. Take your medications, go to therapy, do the inner work because if you don't, then who will? And yeah,
true.
I had a wonderful time talking to you about it. It's such an inspiring.
Appreciate it. Likewise, likewise.
Yes, yes. It's such an inspiring journey, and I hope it resonates with people and it reaches to the right person and helps someone feel less alone. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so much for making it here and having this wonderful conversation. And yeah, I really appreciate you, and I'm sending lots of love your way. So I hope that it
Appreciate
gets easier. And yeah, thank you so much.
appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for everyone who listened to this episode. I hope it resonated with you and do share it with someone who might be going through bipolar, OCD, or PTSD. Give them, words of encouragement. Anyone who would benefit from this conversation. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy it. Andrew, where can people find you?
Uh, so I really only mess around on Instagram. My tag is bipolar_real talk. Yeah, that's my main account right now. I really don't, Facebook, anything else like that. But yeah, just shoot me a follow. I like to, throw a bunch of different stuff out. Whether it's motivation, education, just really whatever vibing with me in the moment. But yeah, try to be different like everyone else out there. So
I'll
yeah, shoot
be
me a follow, and we'll go from there.
Yes, absolutely. I'll be linking Andrew's Instagram down in the description below to check it out, to give him a follow. It produces some wonderful concept, and the content is really good and informative. I'm sure you'll like it. And yeah, if you want to reach out to us on Instagram. It's at the rate beautifulyou.pod. You can email us as well what you think about it. And yeah, thank you for listening. I love you. See you in the next episode. Bye.